If you were no longer affected by the judgment of others and you stopped judging yourself, would you make different choices? Everyone has the potency to make inspired choices. Get ready to listen, share, and experience the creativity that is you. Now, here's the host of Inspired Choices radio show, Possibilities Coach Christine McIver.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm so happy you're here with me tonight. We have another show that's sure to kind of stir things up and see what lights your fire and maybe even ticks you off, because I'm totally open to having that conversation. So I am your host, Christine McIver. I apologize, my throat is a little raspy, but just makes it more sexy, doesn't it? Tonight we are talking about your voice. Isn't that interesting? Your voice is the essential ingredient now. This is something that's been popping up in my world a great deal, and I really felt like it was time that we had a deeper conversation about it. So before we get into tonight's show, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I am a possibilities coach, and I work with individuals and organizations to have them really step into a deeper space of creating in their life, whether it's in their relationships, it's in their business, it's in their joy of their lives, whatever that looks like. I love to work one-on-one with individuals, and especially I love working with entrepreneurs to see what we can unlock, to have them really show up and be visible more and more in their lives. I do have some specialty programs that I facilitate with. One of those programs is called The Pleasure of Business, where it's a 24-week program where you can jump in at any interval and begin to change what's not working or learn more about what's possible with your business. We dive into the details as opposed to just having a conversation about it. There's action steps every week that start to change things and unlock your business for greater creation. So that is one of my programs. The other program I would like to tell you about is my Divorce with Dignity program. That one has been popping, and there's actually a telecall series, summit actually, that I'm taken part in, and it will be coming out very soon. I'll be telling you all about the dates on that next week. But the Divorce with Dignity program is all about creating relationships from a different space, and those relationships their primary original function may come to a conclusion, but they may still need to be in existence in some way, especially if you are someone who's co-parenting. But Divorce with Dignity is also for bringing relationships to a close that have run their course, that maybe they're no longer generative for you. And that could be with an employer, that could be with a business partner, that could be with a family member or someone that you considered once your friend. So how can we do that so that there's honor and regard for everything we've created, and going forward that it continues to create and contribute in the way that you desire it to? So those are two programs I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to just do some one-on-one coaching with me or check out those programs, you can do all of that at my website, inspiredchoices.ca, or you can email me, Christine@inspiredchoices.ca. Or if there's a topic that you'd love me to talk about on the radio, maybe you've heard me talking about it or you're seeing it in the news, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. So tonight, your voice is the essential ingredient now. And why is now so important? That's what we're going to get into. Why does your voice matter? Do you use your voice but wonder who's listening? What if your voice really is essential? You came here in this time, in this space, I know, to create a better world. Let's do this. Let's use our voice in a way that we've never been willing to do that before. And I'd love to hear from you. If you have questions or comments, please call in. The U.S. 1-815-880-8255. In Canada, 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. So let's talk about this. So what is it about our voices? What is it that's going on in the world right now that requires our voices? There's so many things happening, especially if you're on social media, you can see so much that's going on. There's right now there's a a campaign out there called Me Too, and it's about increasing awareness around sexual assault for women, and not just women, men as well, but the primary are women. And it was interesting. I saw someone had actually posted "not me," and that person got some major backlash in a post, and it went back and forth several times. And I found that really interesting, that someone chose to say, that's not been my experience, and they got hit for it. You know what I mean? Socially, verbally hit for it. And I'm like, wow, what is that? What is it about using our voice that provokes other people? And what I loved about this person that put up the "not me" was she wasn't making the other person wrong, and she kept inviting the person to have their own opinion. But time and time again, she was just being made wrong and wrong and wrong. And it was so fascinating to me how when we're using our voice, how it provokes other people. But here's what I know, and I would love to hear what you have to say, is when you are willing to be the provoker, when you are willing to turn somebody on or pick somebody off, do you know that you are actually inviting them in to using their voice as well into what they know? Now, I think that and I know that there is a way that we can do this where we honor each other's voices. But if you're not willing to put your voice in the ring, then what is actually being said? It is okay to use your voice if you agree or disagree. Exactly. So we've got some comments in the chat room. When you're not putting your voice in the ring, what are you actually denying that you know? What are you denying that other people would really benefit from you speaking your truth, from you actually speaking up? There are so many times where we have an awareness and we talk about it. I know I do this. I talk about it with my girlfriends, and it's something that ticks me off and really cranks me, or I totally agree with it, and I step back and I don't say anything. And then I've started to really look at this. It's like, what is it that is provoking me to not say something and to be quiet? And I'm aware of the reaction that I'm going to have from other people. And so it's something that I'm looking at changing, that regardless of what someone else says back to me, I'm going to choose to use my voice. Now, sometimes it's not easy. And if you're somebody like me who has got a pretty strong voice, sometimes it can really provoke people and it can get kind of nasty. So it's been a thing for me where I need to, like, okay, just step back now. How could I deliver this? What could I say that they could hear, but I could still use my voice? So for me, that's something that I've needed to look at. Again, not trying to get it perfect at all, but really trying to see where I can add my voice to the conversation. Because when I am really not willing to do that, I'm not being the change that I chose to come up here to be, to really show up in the world and to be that change. A couple of things that went on just in the last month, actually, and where I just said, I don't agree, and here's why. And the person came back. It was two different instances. The person came back and disagreed with me and really tried to shame me. And I just stayed in the space. I didn't do anything, and made one more comment. Just kind of gave it some time. Came back with a comment, and I said, "Well, you're certainly, welcome to your opinion. This is what I see. This is what I know, and this is what I would prefer." And it was interesting how a couple of days later they had kind of changed things and really had kind of taken my suggestion, but initially went on the defense. So my question is, would you be willing to allow people to go on the defense and just give them space to be in that defense? So we have someone in the chat room says, it is the herd mentality that kills it for me. Be with us or shut up. Yeah, it can really be, it really can be that, where it's like, if you don't agree, you're going to get whacked down. And what would it take for us to change that? You know, let's have some more conscious conversations where we are including everyone's voice. And what I would love to invite people into is, how can we be curious with our conversations? Would we be willing to be curious about someone's point of view? And, you know, I was raised in a very strong home where you had to fight for your voice to be heard. And you always would go on the defense to prove your point. And so that can sometimes be a knee-jerk reaction for me. And I'm aware of it. So, you know, I'm looking at it and I am consciously choosing to change it because it's not mine. That's not my natural state of being. But I'm aware of the old patterning that's in me. And so when that energy comes up, that energy of like, no, you're wrong, and, you know, I want to fight back, I just go, okay, hold on, and I drop my barriers, and I really begin to ask, okay, so what else is possible here that I haven't considered? Or, you know, Christine, just be open to this. Just read this with an open point of view, an open mindset, and then begin to invite in the possibilities. Because if you're someone that has been taught to defend, and in this world, we're taught to defend our point of view. We're taught to stand our ground, to be strong. Don't let anybody push you around. And when you have that innate reaction within you, it's very, very difficult to be open to another possibility with someone else's input. And what does that create? That creates oftentimes completely avoiding what it is that the topic is and really getting into the fight. And that doesn't begin to change it. So I guess what I would invite everyone into is asking, what is it that I desire to create here with my comments, with my voice? And from that space, from the space of what do I desire to create, what could you add now to the conversation? I really, 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 really would love to talk to you about how critical each and every person's voice is in the world. So when we come back from break, that's actually where we're going to go, is we're going to dive deeper into how critical it is and what is actually creating when we are not adding our voice. If you're willing to look at having a conscious conversation and you're willing to be curious about it and really be willing to allow someone to be angry, to be them provoked, to get them to maybe let out what it is that's going on inside of them, what is it that could actually change? If we are not in the reaction of what someone says, what else can we have and what else can we create? So we have someone in the chat room saying, I was raised with the need to have a standpoint and not a wobbly point. That's very interesting. In some way, the latter is more me. I change my point of view with new information. Awesome. How cool is that? So you can choose what direction you desire to go in when you do receive more information, when something changes. But oftentimes we don't get more information until we actually add our voice in, until we start some of these courageous conversations. You know, I used to call them when I worked in human resources, I used to call them a come to Jesus meeting, where we would need to sit down with an employee and what was going on. We needed to speak to what was being created. And sometimes some of the greatest conversations were where we didn't agree, and they would bring their knowing, their knowledge, their experience to the conversation, and then we could move forward from there. But what would it actually be like if we didn't go into a conversation, we didn't go into expressing, even if you have a radio show, we didn't go into expressing our point of view as the only point of view, but as an invitation to create even more. So that, just let's think about that while we go on break. You are listening to the Inspired Choices radio show here on the Inspired Choices Network with myself, Christine McIver, and tonight's show, Your Voice is the Essential Ingredient Now. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Many of us make choices in our lives based on the past or what others think. What would our lives be like if we made choices based on what we desire in this moment? By tuning in to Inspired Choices radio show with Possibilities Coach Christine McIver, you'll receive tools and inspiration you can use to do just that. You are an infinite being with infinite choices. Are you ready to create the life and living you truly desire? Listen for Inspired Choices radio show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you ready to have pleasure with your business? Yes, I said pleasure with your business. The pleasure of business a la carte will surprise you with topics like meet yourself in the boardroom, money, services, and you. Expand your visibility. The pleasure of communication. The pleasure of Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Christine McIver has so much pleasure with business and loves teaching all things business. Beginning a new business? Desiring to expand a current business? Or looking to resurrect a business that has been dormant? This program will get you fired up and bring more pleasure than you have ever imagined. Exhausted with your excuses for not creating a phenomenal business? Join now for all the pleasure with business. Pleasure of Business a la carte gives you total choice for what you desire and what your business requires. That's 24 weeks of different topics to choose from with weekly calls, audio and video recordings, and PDFs. This class will have you dive right in and use tools to create the business that has been speaking to you. Go to inspiredchoices.ca for full details or join the Facebook page Pleasure of Business a la carte. Now is the time for you and your business.
This is Inspired Choices radio show with Possibilities Coach Christine McIver. To participate in the program, call in the U.S. 815-880-8255. In Canada, 613-800-8736 or Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to Christine@InspiredChoices.ca. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. So we're talking about your voice is the essential ingredient now. I want to tell you about an experience I had this past weekend. I was at a fabulous class called Live Your Magic, and it was something that I was hosting here in Toronto. And there were a lot of people in the room. I think there was maybe about close to 20 people in the room. And as a facilitator, as someone that was teaching the class, you know, a lot of people were agreeing and moving forward, and the facilitator, Megan Silito, was inviting us into creating a new experience and what she knew was possible. And, you know, there was a number of people in the room that were my clients and a number of people that I didn't really know, and everything inside of me was disagreeing with what was possible for me. Not for other people, but what was possible for me. And there was a great hesitation within me to speak up and to say what was true for me. And, you know, I was worried about what people would think of me. I was worried about, you know, tears coming out. I was worried about really revealing a lot that was very, very personal to me. And, you know, being concerned what people would think and, you know, all that garbage that goes on in our head when we're just in a pain place or we're in a difficult place. And finally, I just said, screw it. I'm going to say what's true for me. And it was the most vulnerable, the most naked truth for me that I've ever shared in a group. I've shared some of it one-on-one with some very dear inner circle friends, but I've never shared it publicly. And when I did, it unleashed an avalanche of emotions for me, and it assisted me in getting to a space that I've never been able to get to, areas of my life that were blocking me. And in that moment, it was all about me, and it was all about me creating what was essential for me to create. And I know that there has been many times when I've been in different classes, I've been in different groups where I've held back, and the person that lost out was actually me. Big time I lost out because I wasn't willing to become that vulnerable. And I know that when the class, when I was done sharing and we were done working through that piece of the day, Megan shared with me that with the whole class, she said, "Thank you so much for showing people that, first of all, magic is just not all, fairy," what did she say, rainbows and unicorns, but that sometimes to get to what it is that we desire, we've got to go into places that are really uncomfortable. And I know after speaking with a number of the people in there, in that class, that it changed a lot for them as well, with me being willing to speak what I knew for me. And it allowed them, a safe space to come forward with what was true for them as well. That I was being a leader in using my voice in that class. And it was essential for me because this was a huge stop place for me. And I believe that, if everyone that was in that class came to that class, there was something in everything that was shared for each of us. So I know it was essential for others as well. And thank you, Darlene. Darlene's in the chat room, and she said, "I learned a lot from your vulnerability. I've never been able to do that." Here go the tears. Thank you, Darlene. It's our voice in the world changes things, whether we know about it or not. Our voice in the world, sharing what's true for us, can change something, can impact something. It could, you could be sharing with a dear friend in a confidential conversation and it impacts them. Or you could be putting something out in the world where there is anger or violence or there's shame or there's something being created that just churns in your stomach, and something else is different. And when you choose to step into that uncomfortable space and you use your voice in a way that says, "This is what's true for me," that you don't go making everybody around you wrong, but you share what is true for you, you will, I guarantee it, you will change the world. Because every voice, every conversation, every moment that we're willing to be something different changes the world. And when you're willing to say, "You know what, that doesn't work," or "that is not kind," you allow other people to also say, "I agree." So you might actually be the leader in what you know. And would you be willing to be the leader? Would you be willing to get that uncomfortable? Would you be willing to cry on the radio like I just did? Would you be willing to change what is not working in your life, in your community, in your country, in your world? There are the more and more and more that we become such a global community where it takes no time to be in touch with and find out what's going on in the world, there is more and more opportunities for us to add our voice to the conversation. And the changes that we can make in the world are paramount to the future that we desire to create. So if there's something that you are seeing that you don't agree with, if there's something that's going on in your world, would you be willing to bring your voice to the table? And would you be willing to really get over somebody making you wrong? Because someone making you wrong is just their point of view. It's just based on their experiences, based on their upbringing, based on something inside of them that has them say, no, that's not true for me. But it comes through in judgment. Right? So we have someone in the chat room saying, thank you for this. In light of the hashtag #MeToo, I have been judging myself for being wrong in having the view that as women we make things quickly into sexual harassment instead of perceiving the admiration that might be behind a whistle or comment. Both are true. Exactly. And for me, the #MeToo movement is fabulous for other people if that's what they're choosing. For me personally, well, that has been my experience, that I have been in those places where I have been sexually harassed. That's not something that I was desiring to put out on Facebook, because for me, I would rather put my energy in some other kind of movement. And this radio show is partly that, is really inviting people to step up and speak. I don't find value in that for me, but the #MeToo movement has value for others. And that's fabulous. If we're not judging what other people are doing and just check in with what works for us, then we are really changing things. If you're speaking up just because everybody else is, I don't get that is actually creating greater. But if you're speaking up for what really works for you, or in this case for me, not speaking to that, that's what works for me. So we are going to go to our next break, but I'd really like to invite you into looking at where do you know your voice could contribute, but you've been afraid to contribute? What is that area? Is that in a relationship? Is that in your business? Is that at your place of work? Is it on a social media platform? Where is it that you've been holding back and been too afraid to share? That if you would actually take one step, would create greater awareness for you and be the invitation for someone else. I had a job just before we go to break. I'm just going to tell you this quick little story. I was working in this location, oh my gosh, one of my first jobs right after I got out of college, and I had an awareness of where we could create a great deal of savings financially with some different changes. And my direct boss, she didn't want to have anything to do with it. And it really bothered me a lot because I knew the target of the organization, and that was one of the big targets, of seeing where we can save money in creating something different. And I was encouraged by the president's assistant to speak to him. And when I did, he was full on in agreement with what I had suggested. And next thing I know, a couple of days later, I was being pulled into his office with my boss there, and I was fired. And they would not speak to what I knew to be true, although I kept speaking to it. And he was wiggling very uncomfortably. But she didn't want to have my voice in that office because there was something about me that threatened her. And while at the time it created a great deal of angst for me, what it did was had me choose forward. And, it was probably one of the greatest things that ever occurred for me was for me to be willing to speak to the truth and to be willing to risk it all, and knowing that the universe had my back and that I always had my back. And I'll tell you, I probably would have stayed in that job a very long time, and financially and experiences would have passed me by had I not chosen to do what I did. So, every choice you make will create something. If you're willing to get uncomfortable, the universe will have your back. So let's think about that before we come back from break. I would love to have more of your comments in the chat room. I just love what's going on in here. And please feel free to come join us as well. You can go to the InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. On the menu bar, just click on the chat room and come on in and share what you know to be true with your voice. So you are listening to the Inspired Choices radio show. Tonight, your voice is the essential ingredient now, and we'll be back right after this commercial break.
Many of us make choices in our lives based on the past or what others think. What would our lives be like if we made choices based on what we desire in this moment? By tuning in to Inspired Choices radio show with Possibilities Coach Christine McIver, you'll receive tools and inspiration you can use to do just that. You are an infinite being with infinite choices. Are you ready to create the life and living you truly desire? Listen for Inspired Choices radio show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
How long have you been waiting to uncloak your magic? To allow the magic within you to rise and catalyze into an extraordinary life deep down you know is possible. Live Your Magic is a 2.5-day experience that will move you beyond your mind, ignite your body, and activate the magic that is you. If you are ready to radically tap into your desires, generate more aliveness in your body and your life, then join us at a Live Your Magic event somewhere in the world. Go to megansillito.com and click on events to learn more today. That's MEGANSILLITO.
This is Inspired Choices radio show with Possibilities Coach Christine McIver. To participate in the program, call in the U.S. 815-880-8255. In Canada, 613-800-8736, or Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to Christine@InspiredChoices.ca. Now, back to the program.
Oh, welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. If you're listening to this in the replay, please know I am really super grateful for you for clicking on this and listening. Each and every time we are sharing our thoughts with our audience and they're picking up on it, it creates greater for all of us. And if you have any questions or comments after this show, after you've listened to the replay, please feel free to email me, Christine@InspiredChoices.ca. So we have some more comments in the chat room. I'm just going to share them with you. So Becky says, there's something in this for me with being an allowance of where people are and being allowance of what we are aware of and what we, quote, need to stay. What if there is never a right or a wrong? Just what creates greater, whether we see how or why or not, which is absolutely true. When we are willing to be an allowance of where someone is, there doesn't have to be a right or a wrong. And that includes our own voices. Would you be willing to be an allowance of something that triggers you? Would you be willing to be an allowance of something that really stirs you up and gets you stepping forward with what you know? There is never a wrongness to your voice. But please remember, we can always, always deliver it with kindness and the willingness to come from the space of greater. You know, there's a lot of people in the world, a lot of people, especially in the U.S., that are making the current president, Donald Trump, wrong at every turn. Now, I don't agree with a great deal of the way the man behaves. However, I believe that I can come forward with speaking to what I disagree with without ridiculing him. And I really wonder what would be possible if we could all do that. I was actually watching a TV show the other night, and Hillary Clinton was on the TV show. And while she did not agree with something that Donald Trump had said, the dignity at which the woman delivered her knowing was absolutely so inspiring to me. It's exactly what I'm speaking to. She came forward with a strong voice, and yet she did not need to ridicule him. And for this woman who has, essentially, if anyone, yes, grace, dignity, and graciousness, exactly. If anyone has the quote-unquote right to be annoyed by him, she would be, I think, at the first of the line. And it was inspiring to see that. So what would it take for all of us to use grace, dignity, and graciousness when we're sharing our voice? But please, please, please do not hold your voice back, because what you know is definitely different than what other people know. Each and every one of us has our own knowing. We have something that speaks to us, something that's niggling. And when you're willing to follow that, when you're really willing to show up with what you know, we can expand into even greater. Okay, Rhonda says, I think, especially as women, we have been raised under a veil of censorship and have withheld so much by auto default of our conditioning, and our choice to be here on this planet Earth requires, and being here requires no condition, no reason, no justification for saying whatever the hell we want to say because we feel like saying it, period. Exactly. Like, we don't have to apologize. And can I just say that there are so many countries in the world where your voice, if you used your voice, you would be killed for it. Your family would be killed for it. If you are living in a free country where your voice can be put in the conversation, please use it. There are people in other countries dying for the right to use their voice. And there are people, people of the past, men and women, who fought for the right for us to be able to speak. And it's very arrogant of us to sit back and go, oh, you know what, I can't be bothered with that. It's very, very arrogant for us to have a knowing and not to add it to the conversation to change what isn't working. So I'm going to ask each and every one of you, if there is something that's coming for you, if you're being triggered by something, would you be willing to really look at it and ask some questions and be willing to be uncomfortable in the conversation? Yes, using the question, what will this create, can absolutely add to you bringing your voice into the world. Becky says, no wrongness in voice, and yet some say it just because they can. It absolutely, totally agree. There's people out there that verbal diarrhea is their best friend. And sometimes that creates wonkiness just as much as keeping my mouth closed. It's like everything, no black and white. What if we followed awareness instead of rules about talking or not? Exactly. Last night there was a conversation about a promotion that's going out, and somebody said, oh, this promotion would work beautifully with the Me Too that's currently on social media. And so they were actually going to talk about the Me Too for them and add in this, I think, a link or something to this promotion. And everything inside of me screamed, are you kidding me? And I knew I was going to get pushback, and I stepped forward and I said, I think that this could backfire. And I immediately got pushback. And someone else stepped forward, and interestingly, it was a man, and he stepped forward and he said something very similar to what I said, and it was quite interesting. And it's like, fine, you know what? I don't need to get the kudos, but I'm going to say what I know is true. And I'm no longer going to worry about if it makes somebody else uncomfortable, because you know what? I'm friggin' uncomfortable. I'm friggin' uncomfortable when I'm not saying something. Okay, so we got some more comments in the chat room. Darlene says, I wonder if I make more of an impact with my voice than I recognize. I'm pretty economical with what I say. Yeah, okay, so where are you actually filtering your voice? Where are you seeing what will fit and seeing what will be accepted or what won't be accepted? And know that if you've got that going on in you somewhere, I would invite you to ask, where am I buying this as real and true or the only way, as opposed to, here's my knowing. Here's what I know. Here's what's true for me, right? So if we've got a lot of charge on what we're going to say, there's probably somewhere that we're hooked by all of this. Does that make sense? Right? So if you're coming forward with, like Becky said, no wrongness in your voice, and you're just coming forward with, this is what I know, people cannot make you wrong for what you know. Now, they may try. They may, there's people out there that they really love to just argue and fight. But you can't deny what someone else knows. You can't deny what is true for someone else. And when you come at it from that space of, this is what's true for me, and you're willing to put your voice in without anyone ever agreeing with you, you can start to change things. It may take you a little while. It may have you having to come forward again and again and again with your voice. However, you will be creating greater, because you now will no longer be uncomfortable. And when you drop your barriers and you're no longer uncomfortable, you're going to start receiving more knowing. You're going to start receiving more awareness, and you're going to be even more open to the other person that puts their comment in, whether they agree with you or they don't, or they have a completely other different possibility in the conversation. There is no need for us to sit back and wait, but there is an essential need to put our voice, our knowing into the conversation. There are so many times that, I've held back and held back and held back and been worried about what other people thought or would think. And when I did come forward with what I knew, they looked at me and were like, why were you holding back? Right? How much of our voices have we been taught that we need to make sure everybody will agree with us before we bring our voice forward? Well, how is anybody going to be able to agree with or challenge or disagree or anything if you don't bring your voice forward? So you can't be right or wrong, good or bad, if you're not using your voice, if you're not stepping into what you know. We're in such an amazing time and space in our world where people are bringing their voices together and bringing forward what they know, and they're changing the world. When we come together with our voices, we can undo tragedies. We can undo injustices. We can undo unkindnesses in the world. And we can have politics, we can have laws, we can have complete ways of being that have been quote unquote normal up to this point actually be completely changed forever. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about using our voices to really, really change the world. Your voice. You listening to me, whoever you are right now, I want you to know I want to hear what you have to say. I want to know what you think. I want to know what you know. I want to hear your voice. Email me. Message me on Facebook. Tell me what you know that will change something. whether it will change it a millimeter or it will change it by miles and miles. Tell me what you know. Add your voice. Your voice, what you know, is different from anybody else's, just like your fingerprints. Nobody else has your fingerprints. Nobody else has your knowing. It's just you. In this class this past weekend, we had a 9-year-old child and we had 2 teenagers. And I'm telling you, when they would use their voice in the class, it changed things for all of us. You don't have to have a degree of a certain kind or a certain amount of education or a certain age or a certain amount of experience. Every single solitary person in the world, regardless of who or what they have ever done or be or their age, their voice matters. And I would love to invite more and more people to really be willing to be uncomfortable and move through that uncomfortable so we could get to creating what is even more important in this world. And it's everyone's voice is creating greater. So on that note, we're going to go for our last break of the show. You are listening to the Inspired Choices radio show with myself, Christine McIver. I would love to hear from you. There's still time to join us in the chat room or call in. And when we get back after this break, we will dive in just a little bit more and see what else we can create with tonight's show. Thank you, everyone. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Many of us make choices in our lives based on the past or what others think. What would our lives be like if we made choices based on what we desire in this moment? By tuning in to Inspired Choices radio show with Possibilities Coach Christine McIver, you'll receive tools and inspiration you can use to do just that. You are an infinite being with infinite choices. Are you ready to create the life and living you truly desire? Listen for Inspired Choices radio show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you ready to have pleasure with your business? Yes, I said pleasure with your business. The pleasure of business a la carte will surprise you with topics like meet yourself in the boardroom, money, services, and you. Expand your visibility. The pleasure of communication. The pleasure of Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Christine McIver has so much pleasure with business and loves teaching all things business. Beginning a new business? Desiring to expand a current business? Or looking to resurrect a business that has been dormant? This program will get you fired up and bring more pleasure than you have ever imagined. Exhausted with your excuses for not creating a phenomenal business? Join now for all the pleasure with business. Pleasure of Business a la carte gives you total choice for what you desire and what your business requires. That's 24 weeks of different topics to choose from with weekly calls, audio and video recordings, and PDFs. This class will have you dive right in and use tools to create the business that has been speaking to you. Go to inspiredchoices.ca for full details or join the Facebook page, Pleasure of Business a la carte. Now is the time for you and your business.
This is Inspired Choices radio show with Possibilities Coach Christine McIver. To participate in the program, call in the U.S. 815-880-8255. In Canada, 613-800-8736 or Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to Christine@InspiredChoices.ca. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. Yes, tonight we are talking about your voice is the essential ingredient now. So I've kind of been looking at a lot of political and different movements and conversations. But you know, the other place that I would love you to look at is what are you creating in the world? What do you desire to create? You know, I work with a lot of business owners, and they are oftentimes looking at, well, so-and-so does that, or so-and-so has done that, or, I can't do that because so-and-so has done it. And I'm like, no, that's not true. I know, even as a radio show host, and, this is a platform I created because I wanted my voice in the world, but I also wanted to invite other people to bring their voices into the world through this platform. I know that there are many hosts on the platform who have many, many listeners, and they have no idea that I have a radio show on here. And we might be talking about some of the same topics, and that the way that they deliver, the energy that they be, is what attracts that listener. And I don't take it as anything other than we're just a different energy. There's a different match. So the same can be said of your creations in the world. There's many, 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 many books in the world, and we could probably find the same topic with we could come up with one topic, and we could probably find 1,000 books easily on the same topic. But that doesn't mean that one person is going to be greater than another person. What it actually speaks to is that different people have a different voice with it. They have a different way of delivering it, and other people are able to hear it, read it, connect with it differently. So your voice in the world with what you're creating, if you have a business, whether it's a full-time business or a part-time business or, even crafts or hobbies or whatever it is, what you create in the world will resonate for other people than it will for some people that are already doing it, okay? There are, for every person that drinks coffee, there is how many different choices in the world. That's because we have different desires. We have different things, the way that they resonate with us, whether it's a cup of coffee or it's a program or it's a radio show. Your voice will speak to others that they can't find someone that speaks their quote-unquote language. So it really makes a huge difference when you add your voice to the creations that are in your heart that are jumping for you. So I'm speaking to all the entrepreneurs or the wannabe entrepreneurs. Please don't hold back creating what what speaks to you. It doesn't matter if some thousands of other people are creating it. If it speaks to you, create it. It's like build it and they will come. It's absolutely true. So I love the question or the comment in the chat room. Darlene says, makes me want to talk to my voice like, hey, voice, what would you like to say? And her question is, does my voice need a voice? That is a fabulous question, Darlene. So everyone out there, does your voice need a voice? Do you need to have a conversation with your voice and ask your voice to step up even more? If you are looking to put your voice out in the world and a radio show is something that you would love to do, please connect with me. I would love to speak to you. I would love to hear different points of view on the radio because it really invites all of us into questioning and creating even more. If you'd like to connect with me, if you'd like to work with me one-on-one, I always give everyone the first 30 minutes for free to see what we could possibly create together. And so, as I said, you can connect with me at my website, inspiredchoices.ca, or Christine at inspiredchoices.ca. And if you are listening to this in the replay, all of those links will be in the write-up as well. So, folks, this is a really big topic and something we could continue to talk about again and again. We're coming to a close, but I really want to invite you into really looking at what is true for you, and what could you add to the conversation that if you were not afraid of what anybody else thinks. So coming up next week, we're going to have another dynamic show. The conversation will continue, and we will be talking about business blocks and bullshit. Thank you, everyone, for joining me tonight. I look forward to seeing you next week, to hearing from you. And remember, wherever you are, you can always make another choice. Take care, everyone. See you next week on the Inspired Choices Network. Bye for now.
Thank you for choosing to listen to Inspired Choices Radio Show. Christine McIver will return next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by making the choices that bring you all that you desire.